Welcome to 2026. A new year has begun, and what does that even mean? After all, it's just us orbiting the sun. But time is real and very, very important. That's why you should write down a date every once in a while, for it refers to the entirety of the universe. That's a lot of information for 20 characters, so you can be expected to write a fucking date. Anyway, since time is important, very real, it makes sense that we agree upon it by means of having things like years, and now a new one is beginning, and that's rare enough. So let's celebrate together. We want to celebrate, right? There's an opportunity to celebrate, let's fucking celebrate. And well, the fact that we have agreed upon it, that makes it real, doesn't it? I mean, the new cycle begins, the new fiscal cycle, new election cycles here and there. Maybe your contract, your phone bill starts over once more. So all of that is real because we are making it real. And that is not arbitrary because we have to make choices, and so that's how it ends up being. But there are choices which are arbitrary, and as long as those are not negative, not a problem for the world, for other people, for yourself, fine, good. But there are a lot of choices that people make, including myself, that are negative, that are unnecessary, that are stupid, that should be avoided. See, for under 1,000 years, mankind has been trying to find the one big answer. How do we coexist? Because reality from the start was hurting us, not just from birth, which is still happening. Oh, it's so cold out here now. But as primitive people, we were sitting by the campfire, trying to survive, trying not to be eaten by the lion. And now we're sitting at home, playing games, recording videos, and controlling things remotely with a handheld device that can either show us some film or can show us some interface to some actual real physical object that we are controlling with it, or can just show us the face of the person we're interacting with. So we've pretty much virtualized reality to some degree, / we have pretty much taken control of reality to some degree. And that was the goal. We were trying to get out of the pain, out of the suffering. And the best way to do that is to take control. In other words, that feeling that we wanted to have, or those feelings that we want to avoid, both of those are now to some good degree in control, and therefore reality is making way and is saying, okay, well, you're not going to have those bad feelings anymore, and the good feelings, here, have some more of those. So we are taking control, we are winning, we are making it. And the biggest question, the biggest problem that we still have to solve is how do we coexist? I mean, we know the golden rule and don't be an asshole and all of that, yeah, fine. But ultimately the question is about the actual implementation, the concrete way to coexist. And we're still thinking about that, right? We have some good answers. We have cities, countries, continents, that are working together or individually. Now we're even calling those cells which made civilization be, those organs out of which the entirety of civilization that we have in the Western nations, at least these days, has emerged. So calling that into question is saying, well, we don't need those anymore. That's dubitable, man. Let's phrase it as carefully as possible. It's dubitable. Anyway, so mankind is still looking for those answers, and so and we are very close to something like a final answer, I tell you. We're really, really not far away from having something like a perfect coexistence here on this little planet.
Shuttle CF2, base 155 ground. We've got eyes on you. Welcome.
And the closer we're getting to that final answer, the more the energy increases. Because imagine we would find a final answer. This means that all the lived ways all the ways that people live that will ultimately be excluded from that final answer, they are basically facing destruction. Or maybe the right ways are facing destruction. I'm saying, basically we're talking about entire cultures, entire ways of lives, many groups of people, or many tendencies within yourself that might be competing, deciding, competing about to be or not to be, you or me, and so forth and so on. That's what's happening. Things are intensifying. I mean, things are being called into question on a fundamental basis, on scales that have never happened before. Like, hey, why not abolish nation states altogether and cities? Which is, of course, insane. I mean, that's what made us. And now just to toss that away within 10, 20 years because someone said so, I mean, this whole thing with opening the borders is ridiculous. It's just the beginning of that. There are still people who say, well, we don't need nations. Those people are usually the ones that haven't contributed much to a nation. Anyway, the point being, 2026 will be once again mankind trying to figure out that big question, and since we're now closer than ever to an answer, the energy will be ever more intense. And so, well, this year will be very intense, with lots of novelties and lots of unpleasant shit, which will make us wish for 2027 and 28 and 29, when ultimately the problem that needs to be solved is right here and is thinking about that, which is which is you. We are the problem. The ultimate problem that we're having is not so much the resources that we have on this planet, or an asteroid that might hit us, or the sun being a bit too bright this day, or the rain. It's usually really us. And if everybody in the world would just stop littering, if you catch my drift, there would be no more littering. That is really the answer, man. We are in an age where we're no longer subdued by the brutality of nature, surviving in the caves and trying not to be eaten by the lion, but instead where basically all the suffering is coming from other people. And from ourselves, yeah, sure. And what does that mean? Well, we were trying to get out of the shit, out of the suffering, which means that we were taking control, and we have more power over reality than ever. And this will keep increasing, whether you want it to or not. You will have more and more power, you yourself, even if you're not striving for it. It's just the way it is, because we as a collective are trying to create that situation where we have more power over reality, and so that will also bleed into your personal situation. You will have that power. This means you will have that responsibility, whether you want it or not. So the only way, ultimately, that we can coexist properly on this planet is that everybody does their part. Because everybody will ultimately be also the one who has the power. We're no longer just part of a big group, no one can achieve anything. No, more and more power rests in your hands. And ultimately, the responsibility to stop the littering, well, it rests with everybody who does the littering. Hope to see you in this year many times. But if not, doesn't matter. It's just important that you do what's right. Or rather, that you don't do what's wrong. See you again next time.